Sorry, y'all, I forgot to hit record. Okay, we got a few students that have been admitted. Okay, not yet, but you've applied. Okay, someone's here on behalf of their daughter. Okay, want some more information on financial aid and the National Guard. Okay, I love that we got some family here. Okay, you've been accepted, but you want to learn more. Okay, awesome. Shout out to our parents and guardians that are here online representing on behalf of your student, of your future Wildcat. We're so excited that you're here, and shout out to everyone that has been accepted. And if you haven't gotten your admission status, or maybe you just haven't applied yet, we got you covered. This is what we're here for, okay? So we're going to kick off today's session with learning more information. Just in general, I'll go over briefly about the application process and how to apply to Fort Valley State. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So, welcome to Fort Valley State. We are the #1 public, historically Black college university in the state of Georgia, and we have been for the last 6 years, as reported by U.S. News and World Reports. We're located in Fort Valley, Georgia, which I would say is about an hour and 30 minutes outside of Atlanta. We're 3 hours away from Tallahassee, Florida, if you're familiar. And those are my reference points. We're a great school if you're interested in studying anything related to agriculture, business management, visual arts, performance arts, media studies, biology. You want to go on the med track, we got you covered. We just launched our nursing program as well. So there's a lot of different opportunities that you can take advantage of at Fort Valley State. Okay, so let's say you've already been admitted, right? The first step is to go in your account and activate your FVSU account. This is so you can have your email and receive communication from us, okay? Then you want to make sure that you complete your intent to enroll form. You can scan this QR code if you like, and it'll give you those details and information on the intent to enroll, which is just saying if you have been admitted that you want to go ahead and commit to us, it's okay. Let's make it official. It's love month, y'all. Let's start dating. Let's lock it up. And then of course, complete your FAFSA, which we're going to get into the details of how at this information session. And then, of course, you sign up for an enrollment one-on-one section, which is really just like an orientation or like your first experience of coming to campus and getting your affairs in order from student accounts, picking your classes. All of these details will take place and be secured at enrollment one-on-one. No, I'm speeding through because I'm going to go back to the students who are looking to apply. Everyone who have been admitted, don't forget that you have to apply for housing. We don't have a set date for when the housing application will open yet in February. However, when it is time, rooms are available first come, first serve. So make sure that you or your student has a $200 or a $200 payment available, because there is a non-refundable reservation fee that you have to pay in order to secure your room. If you haven't visited our campus, you totally should, because our residence halls are one of a kind. Students actually don't have to share a room. It's apartment style, so you get your own room. You may share a bathroom with 1 or 2 people on your side of the hallway, but you get the luxury of a kitchen and a living room, and those are great things that not a lot of schools offer. Then, of course, you have to submit your lawful presence documents, which, along with your immunization forms, and then look into ways that you'll pay for your tuitions and fees. Now, these are grouped up special documents that you'll need in order to actually finalize your admissions process. Now, your lawful presence document is really just saying that you are legally residing in your respective state, right? emailing us a copy of your photo ID, or anything like that is a great way that will accept verification. If you visit our site, we do have a whole list of different ways you can verify your lawful presence. Immunization forms are also necessary before you start the semester. These forms have to be completed by your physician. And they're also available on our website where you can download it and print it out and give it to your physician. And then you can simply scan it and have it sent back to us via email. Okay, so that's the just for our accepted students. Okay, so now let's get into our prospective students. Let me see in the chat again, how many of you all are not committed, but you just want to know more? Like, what does Fort Valley State have to offer me? How long is Enrollment 101? Enrollment 101 is normally like a day or two. It's based off of the session that you sign up for, where they invite your advisors. You'll be separated based off of your major or degree program, and they'll advise you that way. And you get to work through those kinks. So normally it's a day commitment. Okay, great question. Awesome. Okay, party people, let me swap screens. That's a funny way of saying it. Do a screen swap. Let me see here. Stop sharing that one. Go to all right. Okay, thank y'all for your patience. I'm gonna go ahead and slide before I slide into the prospective students, or if you're interested in applying. I got one more question. Are parents allowed at the session? Parents are allowed at the session where it focuses on, the payment process and all those things. But there are some aspects where you have your own track as well. Let me share this. There we go. All righty. Now, welcome to Fort Valley State again. I have a short video. That's not the presentation I wanted. Sorry, guys.
Sorry about that, Ms. Wilkerson.
Oh no, it's totally okay. There we go. This is the one that I wanted. Okay. So we have a series, like I mentioned before, of majors and degree programs at Fort Valley State. So if you're interested, some of our more popular programs are biology, criminal justice, psychology, business management, and veterinary technology. And like I mentioned, we have recently launched our nursing program, which right now we have about 8 people in the cohort. And we do have a simulation lab where you actually get to practice different nursing techniques on mannequins that reenact different scenarios in your textbook. So another great thing about Fort Valley State is we're really high in social mobility, which is a fancy way of saying by the time our students graduate, some of them are making 2 to 3 times their family's income. And we do this through a lot of hands-on learning opportunities like the simulation lab, where students can get their hands dirty and really get a feel for their degree program and what track in their program that they're actually interested in. So we do have over 60 student clubs and organizations. We have been named top 10 Greek life in Georgia. We have 12 NCAA varsity sports team and a marching band. So if you're looking for ways to get engaged on campus, while we do take care of you, academically, we love to invest in your mind. We also recognize that your heart has to be taken care of too. So providing you with opportunities to engage with your classmates and build these lifelong connections is what we're all about as well. I mentioned this for admitted students, but I'm going to mention it also for our students who are interested in living on campus. Now, for my neighbors that live in Warner Robins and Kathleen, y'all are not required to live on campus. But for my cousins in Dublin and McDonough, y'all gonna have to live on campus, and that's okay. You do need that $200 reservation fee to secure your room. Right now for the fall in Byron, you're around the corner. You don't have to worry about it. You my neighbor too. You will have to have a $200 non-refundable reservation fee when you apply to secure your room. Housing is first come, first serve. So just keep that in mind. That's why we like to mention it now. Financial aid, which we have, again, for those of you who may have came in a little bit late, we got Miss Heidi Penny on the line, who's representing our financial aid office, and she's going to go into details, into more details about the financial aid application and the FAFSA process. Heidi, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Take it away.
All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. My turn. Hopefully this will work. Doesn't want to share. There we go. All right, hopefully everybody can see my screen right now. So as you know, this is Apply Like a Wildcat Financial Aid Edition. So I know it might get a little bit, I won't say boring, but not as exciting as the admissions piece of it, but I will try to make it as exciting as I can, as much as humanly possible. So give me probably just a few minutes and we can open it up to answer some questions for you. And hopefully my PowerPoint will continue going forward. All right. So financial aid. Everybody wonders kind of what that financial aid process looks like and what exactly it means. So essentially what we here at Fort Valley ask you to do is we ask you to complete the financial aid application or the FAFSA application, which stands for the free application for federal student aid. So if for some reason you end up on the wrong website, which we'll get to in a little bit, and you get charged $79, stop what you're doing. Don't give any money. Don't give any credit cards. Don't give any information. It's a free application. Okay. So what you'll do is a student will complete the FAFSA application. It is then given to the U.S. Department of Education, who then processes your application, which again, will go into what exactly they do process on the application in a few minutes. Then we, as an institution, Fort Valley, will receive the information from the Department of Education. And a lot of times students are selected for a process we like to call verification. And when that happens, we will ask for additional documentation, maybe such as your tax return or a form just confirming everybody who's in your household, how many are in college, stuff like that. So we do request that students submit that information as soon as possible. And then last but not least, your student is awarded. So that is a good thing. And by awarded, we mean you are offered some type of financial assistance, whether it be a federal Pell Grant or whether it be some direct loan information in a loan. So some things to keep in mind is you definitely want to do the 2024-2025 FAFSA application, especially if you're planning on coming in for the fall. If you are planning on coming in for the summertime, it's very important that you know that we use the 2023-24 FAFSA. So you might find yourself in a situation where I don't know which year I want to do. So do both is all I can suggest. If you're one of those who maybe you want to jumpstart your education, you can come in the summer, then go ahead and fill out the 23-24 FAFSA. However, the majority of you guys will be coming in the fall, and we want you to fill out the all brand new 2024-25 FAFSA. And it is new, brand new. It's gone from 101 questions down to 36. So they've made it super exciting and super easy for students and parents to complete the FAFSA, or as I like to say, or try to make it much easier for students to complete the FAFSA. They've kind of taken a lot of the guesswork out of it, which is nice. So when you fill out the FAFSA, one of the first things that they're going to ask that you create is called the Federal Student Aid ID number. And we always refer to it as your FSA ID. And pretty much a student needs one, a parent needs one, and if the student is married, then the student would need one as well, or the spouse would need one as well. What that FSA ID is it acts like an electronic signature for all of your financial aid needs throughout your entire academic career. So you'll create this FSA ID once, and it's based on your social security number, your date of birth, and your email address. So do not share it with anybody. That FSA ID, because it is linked to your social security number, obviously identity theft is kind of a thing. So make sure you don't share it with anybody. Financial aid offices will never, ever, ever ask for it. So we'll say, hey, did you sign it with your FSA ID? But we will never ask you what yours is. Also, make sure that if you're starting this process on your own without your parents, please make sure you have your parents' email address, because as students start filling out the FAFSA form, it's going to send a link to your parent to make sure they fill out the FAFSA form as well, or at least their sections. And then new this year is you are required, parents and students are required to give consent to have your information imported directly from the IRS into the FAFSA form. If you choose not to do this and give consent, unfortunately, you will be ineligible for federal aid. So it looks at the 2022 federal tax information. So you've got a couple years in between. But if for some reason you decide not to consent to it, unfortunately, you are ineligible for aid. And as you're filling out the FAFSA form, it's going to ask you and tell you multiple times, oh, by the way, are you sure you don't want to import your information? Even if it lets you type in your tax information, it's still going to tell you that you're ineligible unless you give consent. So those are some things I'd just like you to think about. And then be sure to read carefully. So as I mentioned, the FAFSA form is new for all of us. So there's some kind of tricks and little tweaks in there that some students get hung up on, and we're going to go over just a couple of those as we walk through the FAFSA just a little bit. Okay. So walking through the FAFSA, first, you want to make sure you're in the right spot. So there's a couple different ways that you can access the FAFSA website. One is through studentaid.gov, and then clicking on studentaid.gov, clicking here on the FAFSA form, and then clicking on complete FAFSA, and you'll get this screen. The other one is just going to FAFSA.gov, and it will log you right back into here. So every single student, even if you have filed a FAFSA form in the past because you're a continuing student or you're a transfer student coming from a different college, you're going to start a new form because, again, this is 100% brand new. So once you click that start a new form, you can go ahead and it'll ask you then, who's completing the form for you. Okay. And it's going to ask you some demographic information. Of course, it switched over my slides. I have no idea why. But it's going to say, are you starting the FAFSA form as a student or parent? Know that whichever one that you're entering as, so if you're the student, all the parental information is going to be grayed out. If you're entering as the parent, all the student information is going to be grayed out. So you will not be able to complete the FAFSA on behalf of somebody else, like we have been able to do in the past. So you just want to be mindful of that. And when it asks for student demographic information, you want to be mindful of that as well. One of the newest things with this new FAFSA is that last year, answering your gender, race, ethnicity, it was all kind of voluntary. This year, they're not really making that step voluntary. They're asking students to complete that information. However, the schools will never receive it. So just to give you a heads up, don't be afraid to answer that information. Schools don't see it. We don't want to see it. We don't care about your race, ethnicity, and all that fun stuff. We don't. We like our students to be students. So some of those things to be mindful of. One of the other pieces is that after you go through all the demographic information, students are then presented on question number 5. You're actually asked about some different personal circumstances. Students are asked, are you in the armed services? Are you married? Are you At the age of 13, were you awarded the court? Were you in foster care? Because all that determines whether or not a student is an independent or a dependent student. And I will tell you that most of our students are dependent students unless they are married or have children and or are graduate students. So those are the primary ones. Very rarely do we have students in the other situations where they're veterans of the armed services at such a young age, because most of our students do come right out of high school. So it's kind of nice. The other thing too is that it will ask you if you are at risk of homelessness, and then who can tell you that you're at risk of homelessness. So if you are one of those and your student is one of those who in high school has a homeless liaison, they would just check that box and boom, they're done. So now keep in mind the FAFSA is designed specifically for students and parents. Grandparents, aunt, uncles, their family members are not supposed to be giving their information as parents. The only ones who should be giving their parental information are those who are actual biological parents and or adoptive parents. That's it. So we do once in a while have some students who are in unusual circumstances where maybe they don't have contact with their parents. Maybe their parents have passed away. Maybe they're just in a situation where there's an abusive environment and a threatening environment. Those students, we don't want to stop them from receiving financial aid. So they would check yes to this student has unusual circumstances. And if they do, then the school kind of in Fort Valley, we take it over from there and we start to reach out and we ask the student exactly, hey, how can we help you with this? You know, what kind of documentation can you provide to us? And as much as we don't want to intrude, we have to ask certain questions, and we do have to have certain documentation in place. But we will always try to help our students and make it as easy as possible to make sure that they are getting all the services that they need and all the help that they need to fill out the FAFSA form. And if they are in that unusual circumstance, to make it so that way there's no stigma attached to it at all. So as I mentioned, after you fill out the demographic information, the next section, and again, the new FAFSA goes extremely fast. So you literally log in, you put in the demographic information, which really kind of confirms for you what your address is. Then you have those dependency questions. The next section is actually from the tax return. And everybody, as I mentioned, has to provide consent to be eligible for federal aid. Okay, so all these students, and I know that these screenshots are not super clear. They weren't designed to be because they were off of somebody's actual FAFSA form that they had filled out. So we just kind of wanted to give you an idea to make sure that you're on the right track. So that way, yes, you do see that, yes, you do have to provide consent or be ineligible for federal student aid. And again, as easy as the new FAFSA is, it's a lot of words. So many words. And we actually, as financial aid administrators, are like, nobody's going to read that. We're going to be perfectly honest. We're going to be like, okay, and hey, yes. So again, just keep in mind, it's really going to take the 2022 tax information for the students, for parents, and or spouses, and it's going to put it into the FAFSA for you. You are not going to get a chance to review that information. So don't be surprised if you hit consent, everything looks good, and then it says, moving on. Now let's talk about your household. It's not going to present you with your 2022 tax information, just to give you a heads up. So that way you can't change it. So that was a very new thing for all of us to deal with. The next thing that does ask you to do, once you have done and you have given your consent and your permission, it is going to ask you if your family size is different than the number of exemptions on your tax return. So I'll use myself as an example. If you're divorced and you're one of those where you rotate your children with your ex-spouse, it could be that you have an agreement, and even though you go ahead and you claim that child more than 50% of the time, you pay for more than 50% of their expenses, you still have that agreement in place. So it looks like you only have one in the family versus actually having two. So those are just some things to think about. So it will present you with that question, and then it will ask you who you plan on and who you'll live with, that parent, and who'll receive more than half of your support for that 2024-2025 year. So you don't have to actually put names, you just put numbers, and it makes like a lot easier. But that is one thing that it will tell you, and I would like you to be careful of, is if you have that situation where your exemptions don't match who's physically in your household, be sure to make that change here on the FAFSA form. And then pretty much as soon as you tell them who's in your family, it will then say, hey, where do you want to go? So again, question 23 is all the colleges that you plan on attending. Unlike the past, it will only allow you to have 10 colleges. This one allows you up to 20 different colleges and institutions. But we know you're going to go to Fort Valley. It's going to be the one and only one that you want. So our school code is the easiest way to find it. It's going to be 001566. You will memorize that by the time we are done with all of our financial aid presentations, all of our enrollment 101 and everything. And the reason why you want the school code is because, again, with the new FAFSA, there's some quirks. One of the quirks is those schools like ours who have multiple names to it, sometimes it concatenates it, meaning it shortens it. So it makes it so it says Fort V versus Fort Valley. So it makes it a lot easier if you know that our school code is 001566. So you can say, yes, this is definitely the school that I want. If not, you might end up in Washington, I don't know, or some other school that has, Fort V at the start of their school. So it's happening a lot. It is something that the U.S. Department of Education is working on fixing. But as of right now, unfortunately, you might see our shortened name. Hopefully, if anything, it starts with Fort Val versus just Fort V. That would be great. But just in case, I wanted you to be aware of that. So when you're looking for us, make sure that you use our school code and we'll be in good shape. All right. So once we get through that walkthrough and you get through all 30, probably, let's say 25 questions, the last bits and pieces of it are actually signing with the FSA ID. So as I mentioned, the student will sign with their own FSA ID. Their parent will then sign with their FSA ID. However, what will happen is after the student signs with their FSA ID, they will be presented with a question that says, please provide your parent's email. That's why it's important to make sure that your student, or you, if you're working together, that you know the correct email of your parent and or student, okay? Because if you type it in incorrectly, you're not going to get that link. If you don't get the link, you can't finish the FAFSA. And then it sits in an unsubmitted status and it's no fun for anyone. So also I encourage students, when you are setting up your FSA ID, do not use your high school email address. I know many students now are getting email addresses when they're in high school and when they're actually even younger than that. And they kind of follow them up through their graduation. Do not use that email. Use a personal email like a Gmail or a Yahoo or one of those. Create one. You can create one in Outlook. You can definitely create an email, but one that's going to stick with you, that won't go ahead and it won't stop after a certain amount of time. A lot of those public school ones that you get and a lot of those post-secondary education high school emails, they stop after a year. And then, God forbid, you forget your FSA ID, emails are going to go to that inactive email address and it just makes it harder for you in the long run. So make sure that you do all the fun things. All right. So once everything is done with the FAFSA form, once everything has been submitted, students then will start receiving confirmation emails. So as a parent walks through and begins to fill out their information and agree to their tax ID information coming over, then students will get an email saying your parent has submitted their section of the FAFSA form. Then it will say your FAFSA is completely received and submitted. Now, where it's going to be a little bit different is we're all kind of used to those confirmation emails and within a few days getting kind of a printout of what we had signed for the FAFSA form. Unfortunately, that kind of summary page won't happen until March. So what's going to happen is students who fill out the FAFSA form, they're not going to get a summary of the information that they populated until March. And it will be very similar to the student aid report, although of course it has a new name. It's going to be the FAFSA submission report. So once they get that, it's going to pretty much give them their demographic information. It's going to tell them that they've consented, and it will give them their new student aid index. So no changes can be made to the FAFSA form until it no longer says in processing. You'll know that it's no longer in processing when you get the FAFSA submission report and the confirmation report. So that's something you want to be very mindful of and very careful of. So I would definitely read very carefully. If you're unsure about a comment or you're unsure about what something says, use the help buttons. If it's during, business hours, absolutely give us a call and we'll help you through it. That is not a problem. That's what we're here for in financial aid. So, make sure that it's as accurate as possible, because it's going to sit in that processing status until about March as well. And that is because, and it's a good thing, it really is, that's because they've decided to account for inflation in the new formula. So that's a good thing. So it means more students are going to be eligible for the federal Pell Grant because they're using the correct numbers versus numbers from a few years ago. So that's a good thing. It's just going to be a little bit more patience and a little bit more time on all of our ends. So what happens next? So once you fill out your FAFSA form, everything is good. We know that we're kind of hanging out till March, not a whole lot going on. We'll start receiving the 2004-2005 FAFSA information again in the beginning of March. Then we are hoping that we'll be able to provide some initial reviews and financial aid award notifications in April. Now, that is depending on whether we truly get the information from the Department of Education as they promised. So they're working really hard at it. We're working hard. I will say that, unfortunately, we can't even tell students if they're selected for that verification process until March. So if you receive a notification, go ahead and submit those documents. And I will say, because the Department of Education selects the students for verification, if you're selected for one school, you're selected for them all. So if you list 20 different schools on the FAFSA form and you're selected with one, all 20 schools are going to ask for the exact same documentation. Okay, so that's something to know. We don't specifically here at Fort Valley say, hey, you're selected and we choose you. We don't. We unfortunately do not. So, because if it was my thing, nobody would be selected, because it's paperwork for me that I don't want to do and don't want to have to go over and review. So we will try our best to get out notifications by the beginning of April. Again, it's all based on when we receive the information. And unfortunately, all colleges and universities, we will be on the same timeline. So again, none of us are going to receive any information until March. Most of us are going to be trying to rush and trying to hurry up and get out the notifications by April. So decisions can be made, but we know you're coming to Fort Valley, so it's not really a hard decision. I'm just saying, because you're going to come here and you're going to come hang out with us. All right. So at that point, I can say, hey, you've already filled out your FAFSA form. You're kind of waiting. Now's a great time to look for those outside scholarships from different organizations. So if you've got VFW, if you've got Lions Club, Elks Clubs, Kiwanis Club, anything like that, they might have these small scholarships that they're not putting out nationally because they're just small chapters. So definitely look for some of those outside scholarships from private organizations. If you are from the Atlanta area, the Community Foundation of Atlanta has a huge program. And I know that the scholarship deadlines are usually coming up around March 15th. So you just want to worry about trying to get any of those scholarships in, but it's the Community Foundation of Atlanta. Make sure that you go ahead and look up them. I'm trying to think if there's some other bigger ones that I know of. If you are interested in ROTC, Usually February 15th is the deadline for any of those ROTC scholarships. So definitely you've got about a week left. So if anybody's interested and you want them for the fall, I would try to get them in now if you can. But definitely outside scholarships are a great way to go. And they'll make the difference potentially between having to take out a student loan and not to help pay your balance. So that will happen. And then now we do have some students who you do all the right things, and parents too. It's all great in information. However, a lot has changed since 2022. So maybe you lost your job or your marital status changed. Something happened. A lot can happen in 2 years. So if that does, go ahead and just let the school know. We can't really do anything until we receive the initial information. But if you give us a heads up, hey, I had to take a distribution that year, so my income looks inflated. Or, I lost my job in 2023. We can go ahead and we can account for a lot of those circumstances. So definitely contact us, reach out to us, let us know what's going on so we can kind of tell you, all right, we don't have your information yet, but this is what we'll need when we do get your information. So the other thing is too, is that the students who are already eligible for Max Pell, we tell you don't even bother doing a professional judgment or a special circumstance or unusual circumstance because you're already at the max that you can have. But we'll go over some different options with you. Maybe we'll talk you through, hey, have you tried the foundation scholarships? Have you tried a private loan? Have you tried the Parent Plus loan? So we'll walk you through it and we'll help you in any way that we can. And then for our students who are independent, who might be a little bit younger, who are kind of self-supporting, mom and dad don't really help them financially. Unfortunately, self-supporting students under 24 years of age, unless they're married or have a child, and no, I'm not saying go out and get married, nor am I saying go out and go have a kid. That is not what I'm saying. Unfortunately, you are not considered a special or unusual circumstance, and you would be a dependent student where you do need your parents' information. So I always get those one or two every year that's like, I should just be married. Let's not go trying to find some mail order bride or groom or anything. Let's just calm down. We'll figure something out for you. So those are some things that you just want to kind of keep in mind, but reach out to the financial aid office. Anything that you need at all, we are here to help. So we'll definitely help you no matter what. And I know that I've gone over quite a bit of information. So I will stop sharing my screen and we can open it up for any questions that you might have, which I'm sure will be a lot.
Thank you, Heidi. You definitely touched on some awesome things that our students and their families needed to know as they navigate the FAFSA process and these recent changes. FAFSA always gives people like, so to be able to have a financial aid department and leadership that is really all about advocating for our students and helping them and their families through this process, you are appreciated. So we do have a few questions.
Okay.
Our first question is, I've been marked as an independent student for FAFSA. Does that interfere with anything regarding financial aid?
Okay, so yes and no. Where it would interfere with anything for financial aid purposes is if you received a lot of outside scholarships above and beyond Pell Grant, the Hope Scholarship, anything like that, where you might bump up against what we call our cost of attendance. That would be really the only time that it would really impact you potentially negatively. And in those cases, we would encourage you to reach out to your donors from those outside agencies and say, hey, can I use it for a different term? Can I use it for a different year? Stuff like that. But really being marked independent won't hurt anything as far as federal aid is concerned.
Awesome. And y'all, if we answer your question and you have a follow-up question, feel free to put that in the chat as well. Heidi, you touched on the parents having a larger role in this year's FAFSA process. Our question was, will both parents need a FAFSA ID? a FSA ID?
Okay, so here's where it gets confusing and why I didn't mention it first. It all depends on the way that you filed your taxes. So what will happen is if your parents, mom and dad are married, or parent one and parent two are married, and they filed jointly, only one parent needs an FSA ID. If both parents are married, and they're married to each other, and they filed married filing separately, both will need an FSA ID. If the biological parents or adoptive parents are not married but are living in the same household, both will need an FSA ID. So again, that's kind of where it gets a little bit confusing.
Dun, dun, dun.
So it's all based on how you filed your taxes in 2022.
Perfect. Thanks for that. Another question is, are legal guardians required to enter financial data?
If you are a legal guardian and not a parent, meaning you have not adopted that your student, no, you are not required to put in your information.
If you are a parent or you have adopted, then you
Right.
are required to submit those details.
Correct. But physical legal guardians with just a court order that says, I'm a legal guardian until X, Y, and Z, you are not to put your information on the FAFSA form.
Awesome. Thanks. Another question we have is, if my FAFSA form says I'm not eligible for federal Pell Grant, what can I do to be eligible for it?
So that's tricky. So if your FAFSA says you're not eligible for the Pell Grant, it's all based on your income. And because, like I said, we don't get to see what your income says, essentially, you would need to try to figure out what your 2022 tax return said. And when you can see what was transferred over into the FAFSA form, you would need to see if those numbers are correct. That would be one thing that you can do. If for some reason, like I mentioned before, if you had an IRA rollover, for example, that might show up on the tax return and inflate your income. And those typically are taken out, but once in a while, they don't always get taken out. And that's something that we can go back to the US Department of Education and say something and say, nope, this was a rollover, it shouldn't count. And then it lowers your income. So that might be one thing. But really, with it being based on income, unless there was a loss of job or employment, there really isn't anything that you can do for this specific year to be Pell eligible.
Thanks, Heidi. So another question is, what if I filled out the FAFSA before being accepted into Fort Valley State? Can I go back and add the code or add the university to my FAFSA?
You will be able to, just not right now. So unfortunately, because everything is kind of in a processing status until March, you won't be able to make any changes to your FAFSA, including adding Fort Valley as a school code until that time. But as soon as you can make those changes, like I said, in March, and you'll know when you receive the confirmation of and that FAFSA submission report. Once you receive that, then you know you can go in and make changes and you won't have any problem.
Awesome. Thanks. Messages are coming in at the same time, y'all. So excuse the
I know.
dramatic
And the good news is
pauses
I
in
can't see them
between.
all, so we're good. I'm like,
Right. Okay. So when are tuition and fees typically due for the fall semester? Great question.
oh gosh, they're usually due prior to you coming on campus. So every student, especially those living in the residence hall, you have to be cleared. So before you even move on campus, your balance has to be paid. So I would say kind of keep it on the safe side and be like maybe 10 days prior to the start of the term would be a good way to estimate it.
Yes. And we've gotten a couple questions on this. You did mention some scholarships, some external scholarships. Can you talk a little bit about Scholarship Universe, and any other support services that you may be aware? Now, I know, our admissions office, we had our Presidential Excellence Scholarship, which was offered to students who had a 3.0 or higher, and y'all excuse my dog, he has the hiccups right now. Perfect timing when we're talking about scholarships. But right now for the fall semester, our Presidential Excellence Scholarship has closed. But if you know someone who is living outside of the state of Georgia, we do offer our Searchlight Scholarship, which in a way waives your out-of-state tuition and fees, and we're still accepting applications for those students. So yeah, that's from the admission side. Go ahead, Heidi.
So we actually have Scholarship Universe. I'm glad you mentioned that. If students go to fbsu.scholarshipuniverse.com, there's actually kind of a twofold thing. So Scholarship Universe offers an external scholarship match, and you have to be an admitted student because we do use single sign-on. So it offers two tools. So it offers an external scholarship where you can go in, answer a couple questions, say, I'm an education major. I plan on working in elementary education. And it will ask you, are you from the state of Georgia? What state are you from? How many credits do you plan on enrolling in? Stuff like that. Do you plan on living on campus? It's going to ask you, a couple questions. And then what it does is it says, hey, you'll be eligible for these external scholarships. And then you will go out and it will give you the due dates for those scholarships. It will give you links to those scholarships as well as applications if they are there. So that's the first one for Scholarship Universe. So kind of that external search. Now, opening on March 18th of this year, hopefully, knock on wood, we also have our internal Fort Valley Foundation Scholarship application. And there's about 5 different applications, but you can apply for 100 and something scholarships using just one of them. The other ones are, they're probably about $1,000 scholarships, but they might ask for another essay or a different type of essay, which is why there's so many. But really with one quick Fort Valley State University scholarship for the foundation, you can apply for 100 different scholarships, and it's awesome. It will, you do one quick essay that says, hey, what do you plan, or why did you decide to go into this field? Because everybody has a little bit of a different major. And then you would, I believe it's a 300 to 500 word essay, and it's really nice. And the system does all the work for you. So it'll pretty much download your high school GPA, your demographic information. And then when it's time for the scholarship to close, which is usually about May, then students will know by June or July whether or not they've received one of those foundation scholarships. And those scholarships range anywhere from $250 all the way up to, I think there was a $2,000 one. So this past year. So it's definitely worth it. I would definitely do it. It's something to think about and consider, especially in those Fort Valley Foundation scholarships are only for Fort Valley students. You have to be accepted and or currently attending Fort Valley in order to be eligible for those scholarships. So you're not competing against 1.3 million people. It's just Fort Valley. So, and the odds are pretty good.
Awesome. I would just like to add on, sometimes y'all, when you're applying for these scholarships, you're thinking like, oh, it's only $100. Oh, it's not enough. I owe 10 grand. What's $100 or what's $1,000? Something is better than nothing, y'all. And just think, if you do have to pay $10,000, that's now $9,000. And then another 1,000, that's now $8,000. So definitely don't leave any money on the table. All these great organizations are willing to contribute to your education. Help them take that money and apply. Thank you, Heidi. A couple other questions, and I know we're getting to the end of time, so I'm gonna try to see if I can consolidate some of them. We have some questions on being asked about tax information. However, their taxes have not been done yet or have never been done. Specifically, as they're navigating through the application, are are they able to skip those questions, or should they use their parents' information? What would you suggest in those circumstances?
Okay. So for students and parents both, you'll get the question of, did you file taxes for 2022? And if the answer is no, it pretty much will skip that entire part. And really all that we'll do is say, okay, cool. And we might ask for your W-2s if you're selected for verification, because we do understand that not a lot of students have worked as 16, 17, 18 years old. So we do understand that. As far as not completing the tax returns yet, it was 2022. So what we would do is we would ask for an extension. And I believe there is a new question on the FAFSA that says you have an extension, or do you have an extension of your 2022 taxes? But most people have already done them, which is why they do the 2 years prior.
Awesome. And then another question about being an independent student. If as an independent student, are they basing my aid off of my income alone?
Correct. Yes, they are.
Okay, great.
You and your spouse if you are married.
Awesome. Thanks for that clarification. And I think we had, now I will say, you all, if you have a more specific question about your dollar amounts or anything like that, I would highly suggest you reach out to our office so that you can have a more one-on-one conversation with the financial aid team, and they can provide you with more specific resources tailored to your situation. I'm looking at both screens, sorry y'all. So yes, we did have a little bit more specific question, and then I'll jump into the admissions questions. So after submitting the application, I received an email advising, based on eligibility criteria, you may be eligible for a federal Pell Grant of up to X amount of dollars. How accurate is that number? Am I going to receive?
It is not.
Oh, okay.
It is not. They have actually changed everything. So the number that you see, when they were determining that you're Pell eligible and approximately this amount, it's actually based on this year's information. It's based on 23-24, and it's based on the Pell disbursement tables and charts. So unfortunately, I would not go by that at all. It's not very accurate. We don't even have the Pell amounts for this year yet, for the upcoming year.
Okay. So the good news is you're Pell eligible. Exactly how much? Loading.
Right.
It's okay, y'all. We're navigating murky waters with the FAFSA application as well. So we're in the boat with you. And as much information as we get and receive, we'll make sure that we communicate that to y'all. We're not gatekeeping. Nope. Now we did have a question about admission. So if my child has received a student ID number but no acceptance letter, what does that mean? So great question. Every student, when they submit an application, they get an ID number so they can start to track their application status and their next steps and details. So if your student has an ID number, that means we have their application. However, they'll probably still need to submit their official transcript, which they can email to us. They will also need to send over their SAT or ACT scores as well, so that we can begin their admissions review process. Another question is the distance. Is there a specific mile marker okay, oh, we're talking about housing. Okay, yes. So the distance, let me pull up the exact number, the mileage for you. Great question, y'all. Y'all are on it today. I'm so proud. Like, this is what we offer the space for, so you can get those questions out. And so we appreciate you. So yeah, so you must live on campus unless you're at least 21 years old, have earned 60 credit hours, or already reside in the local surrounding areas. So local surrounding areas, if you're in Byron, Kathleen, Warner Robins, Macon, Fort Valley, anywhere that's like 30 minutes to 45 minutes away, you're safe to not live on campus. But anything I would say an hour plus, you're required to live on campus. And y'all, the on-campus living experience is on point. Like, it's fun to be away from your family's house and, be your own person. and then go visit when you can, you know. Let me see. Okay, got you. What happens? I think this is another financial aid question. What happens if the money doesn't hit and classes have already started? If the financial aid hasn't hit and classes have already started? Just nervous about this whole new FAFSA process and delays.
Me, I too, don't worry.
Right.
So what'll end up happening is, as long as you do it earlier, as long as you start the FAFSA early, I would say do it no later than April 1st, no matter how, scared, nervous, or whatever you are. I would definitely say make sure that you have it done at least by April 1st. That gives us plenty of time to make sure we get the information in, award you. And then what we do is we don't actually pay students right away. As soon as classes start, they get paid. We do what we call authorizing the aid. So we know the aid's going to come in. We just don't physically have the funds yet. So as long as we have the FAFSA and we can put up that financial aid notification that says, yes, everything looks in line, we're going to authorize the aid to pay on your behalf, you're in good shape for August.
Okay, I think these other questions are admissions related. While I'm putting another helpful links in here for you all, which includes our admissions requirements and details on where you can start your application. Because it sounds like y'all are ready. I'm loving this energy. We'd rather you be prepared and have 1,000 questions than just sit in the back of the room, not quite sure. So this means you all are loving the Valley. So okay, so what are some restrictions for first year students? There are no restrictions for first year students. When you come to our college campus, you are a young adult, right? So we treat you accordingly. You can have your car on campus. As it relates to visitations, we don't have like sleepovers in your room. That's not allowed. However, you are welcome to have visitors. There's no curfew and things of that nature. Things are a little bit we respect your maturity and we recognize, like I mentioned, you're a young adult when it comes to the college experience. So there's a little bit more free will, if you will. As for waiting on an admissions letter, do I need to wait for the letter before submitting other documentations like immunization? Yes, I would wait until you receive the decision letter because that would be the next step, getting the immunization forms from your doctor and submitting your lawful presence verification. And then once you receive that, as long as we have your student's official transcript and or SAT, ACT or SAT scores, we'll be able to provide a decision. Typically, it takes us about 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks to provide you with the decision. So if it has been a little bit longer than that, please reach out to us and let us know. We know how technology can be, so that we can provide you with an update on the application status. What is the process for border state tuition? If you are part of our bordering states, our state neighbors, we do have a border state tuition. It waives your out-of-state tuition and fees. So you will pay the price of an in-state student. You just have to submit a border waiver application, and I can post a link to that in the chat as well. That's found on our website. Okay, great. Yay. Thanks, Serenity. Heidi Serenity said, makes me feel so much better. Thank you so much. I'm glad, y'all, this is what we're here for, What is the direct cost for tuition, room and board for 2024, 2025? Great question. I can also pull the link to that from our website and drop it in the chat. What I'll do is I'll do a follow-up email with everyone who attended this session with quick links and resources that can kind of help you navigate that process. I can include the presentation that Heidi did today, and I'll also include the two presentations. I'm gonna merge them so you ain't got to go through the two presentations that I did as well. That way you have those details. If that sounds
for 24, sorry, real quick, for 24-25, we don't have those rates just yet. Because they have not been sent out by the USG, University System of Georgia. So as soon as we have them, we'll be able to share them and do all that.
Yes. So I would say for now, take a look at our tuition, room and board rates from 2022, 2023, just to give you an idea of what we're working with. Is enrollment apply on campus is available? Yes, you can still, the applications are open, honey. Our last or our final admission deadline for the fall semester is actually in June. And if you're looking to apply for our summer semesters, we're taking applications for those as well. So there's still time to submit your application online. We are waiving application fees for everyone that joined us on this session today. So now you have no excuse. Go apply right now. We do not have an essay on our application. So literally by responding to questions as honest as possible and providing us with your information and those documentations, your transcripts and your test scores, you can join us in the Valley. How soon does Hope Scholarship typically hit? And how soon do we typically let us know if we receive Hope? Okay, and then the other one is an enrollment 101 question.
So I would say August. And I say that because Hope, the initial eligibility is determined by the high schools, and they have to look at the curriculum. And so the state of Georgia waits for all of the last transcripts. So everybody's got to graduate, everybody has to be reviewed. So I would say about August typically is when we do hear, if not the end of July, we do hear who's eligible for Hope, who's eligible for Zell, all that stuff. And then as soon as we get that information, we'll be able to upload it pretty much right from the state and get it right onto your financial aid award as soon as we can.
Awesome. And the question about enrollment 101 was, when is it and how do I schedule a day? Right now, our fall enrollment 101 schedule has not been released. It probably won't be released until the end of the spring semester. So I would say stay on the lookout around May for more details, but I'll include the link as well. Okay. Okay, Mr. Joseph, you need some one-on-one help. We got you covered. So that's how we'll wrap up today's session. I know we're over 9 minutes, but like I said, I want to be a good steward of your time. Heidi, if you don't mind giving folks the Office of Financial Aid's contact information so they can get that one-on-one support, navigating through the application and even their computer sometimes.
Absolutely.
And I will also put our contact information in the chat.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Right. We're chat ladies. Chat ladies. Oh, thank you so much. Miss Serenity said, thank you so much, ladies. You've been wonderful. Thank y'all. We're gonna send out a survey. We want to know if this was helpful and insightful. We'll be doing I know Heidi's office will be doing a lot more sessions to be able to support you. So if you need it, if you need more, stay on the lookout for some more information coming soon. Like I mentioned, we'll send a follow-up email to you all again with our contact information and also our lost my train of thought. Contact information and everything we talked about tonight. This meeting is recorded and it's going to be posted on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to go back and look at what we talked about just as a reminder for your questions, okay? All right, party people, thanks for joining us for Apply Like a Wildcat, the financial aid edition. I'm Aaliyah Wilkerson, and you just had Miss Heidi Penny on the call. And that wraps up our Apply Like a Wildcat session for tonight. You all have a great day, and we'll be in touch. We hope to see you in the Valley. Bye.
Bye, guys.